Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a name everyone knows, Joe Biden.
Yeah, he's been in the public eye forever.
Right, so you might think, Biden, what's left to uncover? But trust me, this isn't your typical political bio.
We're going deeper, looking for those little aha moments, even if you think you know Biden's story.
And get this, our main source material, it's a biography, but in Spanish.
Now, that's what I call a fresh perspective. And you know those unexpected insights are what these deep dives are all about.
Totally. And it all begins with Biden's childhood. The book paints this really vivid picture of Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he grew up. Working class families like his were everything there.
The backbone of the community.
Exactly. Though things weren't always easy for the Biden family.
No, they struggled financially. In fact, the book even talks about them having to relocate, find a fresh start in Delaware.
Wow. Tough times. But I guess experiences like that really stay with you.
Absolutely. These early challenges, they become fundamental to Biden's values. I mean, it's no coincidence that throughout his career, there's this huge focus on working families.
It's like this experiences instilled this deep sense of empathy in him, an understanding of the struggles everyday Americans face.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just feeling empathy. It translates into action. Even early in his career, Biden's right there, championing legislation to support working families. For instance, did you know he was a major advocate for expanding the Earned Income Tax Credit?
The program that helps lift low-income workers out of poverty.
That's the one.
Wow, you know what? I actually didn't know that about him. It's incredible to see how those Scranton years had such a direct impact on what he fought for in Washington.
It all comes full circle, and this deep-seated belief in economic justice, that's a constant throughout his career.
It seems like that fighting spirit, that commitment to justice, really defines him. And the biography doesn't shy away from the tragedies in his life either, like that 1972 car crash.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking, his wife and daughter.
It's unimaginable the grief and despair he must have gone through.
I can't even fathom it.
It's a testament to his strength that he was able to find a way forward, you know? He remarried, built a new family with Jill, and continued to serve the public.
Resilience.
Exactly. A true testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome even the most painful experiences.
Definitely. And that resilience seems to be a recurring theme in his journey. I mean, just look at his Senate years. The book mentions how young he was when he was first elected, only 29.
Can you imagine? Thrust onto the national stage at that age. It's a pressure cooker, even for seasoned politicians.
Absolutely.
But Biden, he didn't shy away from the challenge. Instead, he dives headfirst into some of the toughest issues facing the nation. Foreign policy, criminal justice reform, you name it, he was there, ready to tackle it.
It's kind of mind-blowing, right? Navigating the Senate like that, so young.
Oh, absolutely. But he doesn't just survive it, he tackles these major issues head on.
The biography even highlights his work on social justice, especially back then. What were some of the key areas he was focused on?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is his stance against apartheid in South Africa.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember learning about that in school, but
He was a vocal critic of the regime, pushing for sanctions. And get this, sometimes that even meant going against members of his own party.
taking a stand like that takes guts.
It shows you the depth of his commitment to human rights, to equality. And that, honestly, becomes a defining characteristic of his whole approach to foreign policy, even later on.
Interesting. It's like you see those values solidified early on, and they just carry through his career.
Exactly. Consistency, you know? But hey, we can't talk about Biden's career without mentioning the VP years, right?
The Obama years,
Yeah.
it feels like a lifetime ago now.
Right. And it's important to remember, Biden's role wasn't just symbolic. He wasn't just there for show. He was super involved, shaping policy, especially during those intense years after the 2008 financial crisis.
Oh, man, that was a wild time. It felt like the whole world was on edge.
No kidding. We were teetering on the edge of a full-blown economic depression.
Scary times.
For real. And the response to that, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, that was massive. And guess who was tasked with overseeing it all, making sure it worked?
Biden.
You got it. His focus was all about creating jobs, investing in infrastructure, anything to prevent the economy from total collapse. Talk about high stakes. It required serious political maneuvering and a deep understanding of, regular people's problems.
Which, looking back, seems to have resonated with voters when he ran for president in 2020.
Yeah, that experience probably played a big part in his campaign. Speaking of which, 2020, what a year, huh?
Understatement of the century.
The country was more divided than ever, We had healthcare debates, climate change, social justice.
Mhm.
Everything was so polarized, so tense.
It felt like everyone was at each other's throats about everything.
And Biden, he campaigns on this message of unity, of experience, like, hey, let's get back to normal
Right.
after the chaos of the Trump years.
Right. It was like a complete 180 in terms of tone and style.
Exactly. He appealed to that desire for a steady hand, someone who'd bring back a sense of stability. And his long career, his ability to work with both sides of the aisle, that resonated with people.
And let's be real, he stepped into the presidency facing a whole other level of challenges.
Mm.
I mean, COVID was still raging, the economy was a mess, and don't even get me started on the political division.
Talk about a baptism by fire.
It was like one of those how much worse can it get
Yeah.
moments.
It really was a perfect storm of crises. And the biography really digs into all of that. The Biden administration's COVID response, the American Rescue Plan, his efforts on climate change, the infrastructure stuff.
It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day headlines, but when you zoom out, look at the scale of what he was dealing with. It's overwhelming, really, to think about leading a country through all that.
Totally. And to the biography's credit, it doesn't sugarcoat any of it. It dives into the successes, sure, but also the setbacks, the tough calls, the compromises, all the things that end up defining a presidency, especially one this eventful.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How will history remember Joe Biden?
Ah, the million-dollar question.
It's got to be tough to say for sure this early in the game, but
It is. But we can look at the themes that run through his whole life, right? That rock-solid commitment to working families, the way he's bounced back from personal tragedy, political defeats. Plus, there's this constant belief in unity and working together. Those threads, they're shaping how he's handling the presidency, for sure.
it's like what we were saying about Scranton, those core values he formed early on. Now they're playing out on a global scale.
Bingo! And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating, honestly. We're not just dissecting a politician's moves, we're getting to know Joe Biden, the guy. Those formative experiences, the things he holds dear, they're crucial to understanding his decisions as president.
It's a good reminder, behind every name in the headlines, there's a whole human story. Triumphs, tragedies, the whole shebang. And that shapes how they lead, what choices they make.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And for everyone listening, I think that's a really valuable takeaway. It's so easy to get caught up in the political back and forth, right? The arguments, the sides people take. But remembering that human element, those stories behind our leaders, it helps us understand the bigger picture, be a little more empathetic, I think.
Absolutely. Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive on Joe Biden, I'm left feeling hopeful, honestly. Hopeful that by understanding his journey, the ups and downs, we can have more meaningful conversations about the future, about the country we want to be.
Beautifully put. In the end, it's not about agreeing with every single decision. It's about respect, about hearing different perspectives, working towards something better together.
Couldn't agree more. This deep dive has been a trip, that's for sure. And I really hope it sparked your curiosity to keep learning, to question what you think you know. Keep diving deep into the stories behind the headlines. Until next time, folks.